I'm Mr. Rosansky, and this is a speed run of practice test PSAT 1, the second module, the B module, the true easy one. And let's start this like we start every single one of these and go to the first conventions question. So I see what it offers me, and this offer is an omega consideration of verb. So I'm going to check number first. I've got a plural, I've got a both, I've got a neither, and I've got a neither. With so much diversity of response, I don't really know what to bias, so I just go into the sentence and see what I've got. You would just use your vibe since there are these neithers present. I see that to digest is going to be the right answer. A loose examination of why is that this when starts a new clause. We already have a verb that tells me when, and that is going to eliminate these two. And then in this little mix up, your natural speaking of English is going to guide you there, but the recognition is that there is a need, which is a pretty special semi-modal verb, and that inspires the to digest to be the right answer. Picking a move on, we've got another conventions question. This is popping verbs for me. So I check for number first. I've got a plural, I've got a both, I've got a whoopsies plural, and I've got a both. With all of this both, I'm going to consider that it's a shifts in verb tense question. So I'm going to consider the whens. A, contribute, is the present. B is the future. C is the present as well, and then D is the future as well. We've got a lot of aspect to juggle, which really sucks in this one. So first I'm going to eliminate the concept of either future or present. So I go looking in the sentence. I've got Cassie and Tammy are two of many volunteer math editors who are just two, so we're in the present since it began. All of my clues are eliminating the future concepts. But then I've got the concepts between A and C. So we have aspect. We have the simple present and we have the present perfect, which is what C is offering. In these moments, what I always say is for you to pick the simple aspect, unless you can find something in the sentence that is screaming to you to pick the more complicated or the longer aspect. And in this instance, we do have one of those things that are screaming to us. What is screaming to me is this since it began. If you've ever messed up an aspect question, not trusting and believing the pick the simplest one, this is a great one to pause on and just stare at. Since it began is screaming. So I'm going to pick it and I'm going to move on. Speed the sucker up. It's a speed run play and not an instructional video. We've got conventions. I've got omega conventions. I see that these are verbs. So I've got a both, singular, neither, both. So we can bias the odd man out and go looking for a reason to pick it. If you just read it and think it, you're going to want to pick this includes. Reason being, again, we've got he patented. We've got a verb that already tells me when. That's going to kill these two. Then there could be the included being a sneaky past participle, but you're going to love this C. You're going to love the way you look. I guarantee it. Omega considerations again. I've got verbs again. So we're going to check number first. I've got a singular, I've got a plural, I've got a plural, and I've got a plural. So I'm going to bias the odd man out here, go looking for the subject. Its subject is technically that, but that is a pronoun, a relative pronoun whose antecedent is going to be close by. We land on radiation. Radiation is singular, occurs as singular. Omega consideration, we've got pronouns this time. I can consider number, singular, singular, plural, and singular. I'm going to just bias the odd man out, but obviously I'm going to go looking for an antecedent, the thing that it's referring to. As I trek back, I eventually find minuscule animals, and these minuscule animals can withstand extreme temperatures. Yeah, I plug that sucker in. It makes conceptual sense to me. Therefore, I'm going to pick it and move on. I've got omega considerations. Can I zoom in again? Golly, what a treat. I've got omega considerations that I've got on the table. Everything falls. This seems to be punctuation. I'm going to look for consistency first. The semicolon is screaming to me to find a homie. It's not there. Unfortunately, this step falls. There's no dash. So in my equivalence step, nothing really applies here. So I am on the final four. For the final four, I'm going to engage by two zoomed. We're two zoomed here. Two zoomed. It's like wide ruled paper. It's just unacceptable. Now that I'm in this stage, I'm on the final four. So I'm going to go after this semicolon. I'm going to consider if this semicolon has a complete sentence to the left. On this side, would you read it and put a period considering just to the left? Absolutely not. That would be disgusting. There's no verb that tells me when. That recognition eliminates A and D. Then you would just be picking between B and C depending on whatever your vibes are. Well, actually, we don't need to do this. I never say this, but the parentheses obviously needs a closed parentheses. I don't even have that as part of my system because that's something that's so trivially true. We should just know it to be true. Bars. Omega consideration, we've got voobs, voobs, a new part of speech, the voob. We've got mood. Are we asking a question or are we making a statement? We're 6 minutes in. That's got to stay. No one's going to watch the easy section of a PSAT. That'll go down in obscurity. Just for the record, though, this is ever found in the annals of history. I said voob, right? It. That was the word. Voob. Okay. Oh, no. Okay, fine. Right, we'll start the timestamp in a second. So maybe if someone even gets here, they wouldn't know. So be cool, be cool. All right, we've got our next conventions question, question 21. Oh, wow, it's already popped in with Omega Mood. That's so bizarre. It's a mood question, and I recognize this because there are exclamation marks, question marks, and periods. What am I doing? How are they able to move so fast? Subject, auxiliary, inversion confirms what I want. I've got my Omega considerations. Nothing is going to pop. I'm going to look for consistency because I see this little semicolon here. I don't see any semicolon in the surrounding text. I check for consistency with this dash, then I don't have anything there. So consistency falls, equivalence falls because I don't have anything there. So I'm on the final 4. So for the final 4, let's see what we've got. Semicolon needs a complete sentence to the left. I've got no verb that tells me when he falls. In this environment, this dash would be functioning like a colon, no complete sentence in the left. Check that we did for D makes C fall. Then if you were to pause here, I would ask you to find your verb that tells me when, which is have, and its subjects. Never separate a subject from a verb from its verb with a lone comma. Writers gets our pick. We've got a convention. I love all these conventions questions. Nothing makes my heart warmer than seeing this beauty. I'm going to check my Omega considerations, but nothing applies there. I'm going to check for consistency. I'll go after the semicolon. I see no semicolon in the surrounding text, but there's no period, so nothing dies there. I do have this dash. I'm going to check the dash for a little homie in the surrounding text, and I've got nothing there. So consistency falls. Equivalence, and equivalence. I do actually have something. I do have something. Exclamation marks. This is therefore equivalent to this. Then I'm going to land on the final 4. You have 2 ways that you could slice this. You could go looking for this comma to have a bridge or a list, but since I've made it all the way here, I'm just going to check for a complete sentence on either side. To this left side, would you read it and put a period? Are organic compounds, they are organic compounds that, period, you absolutely would not. C gets our pick. We've got a little bridgerino that I will try to highlight here. If it cooperates, if it cooperates, if it cooperates, it's not cooperating. There was the bridge. We'll highlight it with the not official highlightation, and then we'll move on to engaging with this. In January of that year, she did do a win on a case. In April, what did she do in April? She wrote a letter criticizing. It's a lot of stuff that she seems to be doing. I like this later because we had these clues about sequence, for instance. They're different things. She's not restating, and it's not contrast. Later's going to get our pick. We're going to start reading the sentence before. Researchers attempted to answer 3 questions. Is there a period each day? Oh, I see, as I was reading that, I couldn't help but notice the second. I've got a finally. This is going to be of their 3 questions. Let's hit it with the first and move on. Oof, this is a scary word. I've got in a product monopsony. The buyer can force in product monopsony. Buyer can force sellers to lower the prices. In a labor monopsony, so that is to that, employers can force tricky workers to accept lower wages. So earlier is immediately going to follow as like this crazy notion, and in particular is not the same because in labor monopsony is not a product monopsony. But then I'm in a confusing pickle because I see as loose contrast instead seems to be attractive because like this thing is not this thing, and then similarly seems to be attractive because forcing is similar to forcing. So what am I going to do in this position? This can be tricky. I'm going to go with similarly because whatever these categories would be, though the type of market is different, the similarly is that that there's the ability to force something. For instead to be right, what I would be anticipating is these things could be different, but I would want it to be a buyer as a subject for these things. That's when I would launch for instead. My employer word here would be buyer. Weird question. So though the type is different, the similarity is they're forcing instead would be used if the subjects were the same in this in that exact environment. And I do mean grammatical subject, not topic. Crazy question. Much harder than I expected from this easy module. We've got that she voiced support for the people against authoritarian rule. She founded the League of Mexican Women. I like also in this environment that would map onto additionally, but we can look around. It's not an example. We're not concluding anything, and there's nothing in contrast. Her founding is not her voicing support, but it supports the fight for injustice. Additionally, gets my pick. Wow. No notes questions. Okay. We do have one of these weird word choice questions that we can engage with, and we will. When all her surging life is at its full, to me alone, it is a time of pause. Avoid a silent space between two worlds. A useless and empty. Empty just seems to map onto my understanding of what a void is, so I'm going to pick it in this context. I'm going to go looking for signal elements. This is going to pop me back to find something. Dates back to the 14th century, is going to be its context clue. Let's make it color red line. So there are discoveries of a coin made between this. Confirms is the word that I would use if I were to guess. Confirms to provides, and I like it. I'm going to pick it and move on. Simply, this is another one where I'm just going to read this around the text. It sounded like an excellent plan, no doubt, rock steady and very neatly and simply arranged. This just maps onto easily for the most nearly means. We've got another one of these. I'm looking for a signal element. I found it with but. Found it with but, so I'm going to go looking for its context clue. Preserve the figure. Preserve the figure. So wooden objects don't survive. Don't survive, so rarely survive is going to be my choice here. What does this underlined sentence do before I get caught into looking around? Let's give it a little summary poo. But remember, we can look around if we need to, but we're going to try to pretend that we don't need to for as much as we are. Not pretend. We're going to fight the fight. Fight the fight without trying. Because Timby could only be transported by boat because J and R were far, boat side far. The suggestion is that the trade routes were complex. Okay. The things that really stood out to me was like suggest and stuff, suggest and distance. It presents a conclusion about the trade routes. Yes, suggests because cause and effect. This matches general scheme of what I like. It questions how the team was able to conclude. No, this doesn't throw any shade. I don't suspect any shade. It explains why they were made from oak. This does not do that. It describes a common method used. I don't like this. I will read the sentence before because I guess B was kind of tempting. I'm going to read the sentence before. The team could trace the wood to the Jura region of France, located by comparing the growth rings a record by doing this thing. They notice this thing because of this thing. Yeah, it's absolutely just A. They're not providing any sort of question about it. They're affirming. Oh, I remember this question. Let's pretend like we haven't seen it before. Question 6, we've got a main purpose question. I'm going to read the last little area and see what we've got. Messy things, said she. Can I get my notepad? Messy, they be messy. They be messy, said girl who was ratchet, we'll call her. You be too outdoorsy, girl. Sleep in Sleep City, she claims. Sleep in Sleep City, she claims. So let's start going to the start of this and start summarizing what we've got. Anne is bustling with life and energy. She's gorgeous. She's cool. Nice, nice, nice. She's living life. I just mean gorgeous in that sense that she's living life. We've got all of these details that follow. What's happening? Oh, sister, who is a grumpy person, coming dancing, but she has flowers and life and loves having fun. Whew. Okay, let's start engaging with these answers to demonstrate that Anne is newly developed. To demonstrate that Anne has a newly developed, I wouldn't say that there's anything to support that it's newly development. Maybe they do be arguing with each other, but even though that was just like the final bit, the yellow and the blue don't seem to support that. To emphasize the disapproval, That's just engaging with the final bit, and B and C are absolutely very similar. If I thought it was B, I wouldn't know how to differentiate from C. So I know that these are going to fall for that same exact reason. They both focus entirely on the pink in the almost the exact same way, and they do have different personalities. Let's engage with the underlined portion and see what we got. As I read this underlined portion, alternative R and B musicians. Alternative, these musicians among among other new artists say the album was influential. Okay. It urges contemporary. No, it's not forcing anyone to do anything or urging anyone to do anything. A response to criticisms made by some. I like the nation of younger, because contemporary would be younger, even though, because it's newer. Sorry, but it shows that they're an inspiration of them, whose work has been impacted. I like this. B and C are probably the very tempting ones, I would imagine. Moving on to D, it contrasts with recording of two. No, it doesn't contrast anything. If anything, it says it inspires them. How would text 2 respond to the argument of text 1? Let's go. So, H and, can I get a type? Whoa, what was highlighted over here? Interesting. H and C, they looked at core samples and modeled climate change around. They investigate the KPG event. Then what? They found that DT, Deccan traps gases, did. So that's one thing. That's a thing. Did impact global conditions prior to the event. Did impact stuff before. That's huge. Before, but climate returned to normal, stabilized, went back to norm. Instead of that event, it was all about the C impact. Woof. So they're investigating this acronym. They found that this thing happened, sure, whatever, but it happened before. Climate restabilized, it's got to be the C impact. Tough, 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 tough. Volcanic activity was the true cause, as the K gases was this one. I'm going to read more than just the underlined portion here, because I feel like I understand this, but I need some definitions. So I'm going to read before first. What happened here? The KPG, the KPG is usually attributed solely to an asteroid event. Oh, so dude, text 2 would be like, it totally was. It totally was. Totally was. Totally was. Okay. But now I'm going to read volcanic activity. So volcanic activity was not the C impact. Well, duh, impact. You wouldn't say a volcano impact. My bad on that one, players. I wasted some of your time. So VC was the cause early in a long period of eruptions because of DTR that initially pursued no. They would say, no, 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 no. That was way before, is what they would say. They would say, no, 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 no. It was way before. Okay. By agreeing that the impact changed the climates and that the eruption, no, they would not agree that. That would be unhinged. By declaring that the changes in the climate caused by the traps eruptions weren't the main cause. Maybe. I thought that they said that the climate returned to normal well before. So maybe. By questioning why those scientists assume the impact caused, no. The scientists here say that it didn't, it was something else, even though this is his belief, so C's trash, B still on the table. By asserting that the trap's eruption had a more significant effect than some. No. Huh. Don't like D. I know that A, C, and D are wrong. I can feel what they're trying to make me do is they're trying to mix up the orders. But by declaring that the changes in the climate caused by the trap weren't the main cause, they weren't the main cause. Oh, I guess that doesn't entail that it was a cause, like I initially was reading. That doesn't mean that they're saying that it even is a cause. It's not the main cause. Okay, B is the right answer. And that's why I like the tabling strat. Wang and colleagues discovered what? So according to the text, based on what did they, how old was the fossil that they discovered? And it's discovered, have discovered flower bud 164, 164 to 164. As I was coming over, I saw 145, so I'm just going to calm down because I don't want to miss this question. This should be free. They believe that the discovery pushes the emergence of flowering plants back to, oh yeah, it's just giving a range. 164, 164. See, not bad at all. What's the main idea? Let's go to the last sentence, give it a little summary, and then go to the first. Using a good telescope, telescope, the A mission should answer questions about how galaxies be galaxying. All right, easy. So we can start at the start of this text and go through. Ooh, Control Z works, even though you can't do any other functionality. Or, well, no, maybe it does. I don't know. The AM, led by CV, will look into the CGM. Okay? Huge swaths, and then it defines. I don't think I'm going to need that. Specifically, what they will do is focus on portions of the gas that will exist in a warm, hot phase. These portions haven't previously been observable. They look at a thing that has not been able to be observed. Then we've got this. So this team will be looking into the CGM. What they're going to be doing is looking at things that haven't been able to be observed. Using this dope telescope, they'll answer questions about galaxies be galaxying. No, this is putting all this focus on this guy. He went away. This would be if the entire text talked about Vargas, maybe. But that's not what it's doing. Although galaxies that are surrounded by the gene have been studied, researchers have not been able to directly observe low-density gas. I don't remember this part being any part of this. Researchers, but I guess it'll be on the table. Researchers don't have a complete understanding of the process, but have raised the possibilities again. No, this would be like the theory base. This is the actionable steps for the Aspera mission expected to produce the first direct observations of the CGM gas in the warm hot phase. Yes, which will likely play in it. This is perfect. So this is like the first and second sentence. This is the final one. D's going to be right. What don't? So I don't like initially about B is this. Researchers have been unable to direct a low density gas. Previously thought to fuel. Do we even huge lots of low density gas? Yeah. This doesn't speak. Oh, this would just speak to if the text was completely failure based. We suck. This is the optimism that's presented as expected to produce. B was close, but all my summaries mapped onto the optimism there. It's definitely going to be this. Data from the table to complete the example. Attendance and the cost of hosting a past 4 U.S. World Fairs. We've got, for example, I'll pop back in a second if I need to. The fair cost, the 1984 World's Fair cost $350 million, and had only 735. What are we exemplifying? Argues that this is because some people think that events are, I don't think I need to go back a sentence, but I might as well. I'm okay time, but the United States, yeah, it's just asking for a description that is on the chart. What do we got? Data to complete the sentence. Sample food items from the Gemini mission menu. Then, let's go. The menu included. Looking at the sample of food items from these menus, a student notes that on day uno, the menu included B sugar cubes. No, we want B sugar cubes. B, absolutely. Which quotation from an article about One Night in Miami would be the most effective evidence for the student? Oh, I don't know why I read so much. The student claims that, this is long. There are a lot of words involved here. Even though inspiration happened, the film is best understood, is not a precise retelling, is not one-to-one history. The film is imagined, but informed, right? So he wasn't putting Star Wars characters in the civil rights movement, but he wasn't perfectly accurate. So we want to support this claim. When Powers learned of the meeting, he initially planned to write a much longer work about its 4 famous participants, rather than focusing on the meeting itself. No, this doesn't really engage with the concept of not precise but rarely as imagined. Both of them could have been real. One I may have received numerous awards and nominations, including this Best Adapted Screenplay. I need something on the table, so I guess I'll just leave him on the table. Powers had described one as a story of four friends encouraging and supporting one another engaged in a crucial debate. No, this isn't doing the largely imagined. I'm getting a little scared that I'm missing something. Powers could find only the most superficial historical details. I love this in terms of informed. This is good. Powers could only find the most superficial historical details, so it's not a precise retelling. He read extensively. Yep, he's trash. He read extensively about the four individuals and their thinking at the time to prove what might have happened. Largely reimagined. This is perfect. I love this one. I was getting a little afraid there, but this is the choice. Logically completes the text. We're on our final one. Let's see what we've got. Unlike those, unlike those, unlike those, it's just a little too zoomy. Unlike those, his material, their material, contracts, not expands, when heated, and fully recovers after compressing to just 5% of its, and when heated. Then it fully recovers. It fully recovers after compressing to just 5% of its original volume. Then it fully recovers to 5%? I feel like I'm misunderstanding something. Who cares? So, unlike earlier things, it goes in, then recovers to just 5%, suggesting that the air gel's remarkable flexibility results from its higher proportion of air pocket gels. It does have remarkable flexibility, sure. The aerogel's overall strength is greater than that of other insulators, but its ability to withstand exposure to intense heat is lower. No, it seems to be great under heat. The aerogel will be more effective as an insulator for uses that involve gradual temperature shifts than involve rapid. I don't have evidence to support this. Rather than when heated, yeah, no, when heated fully, not, this is, if the details when heated slowly over time, but it just says when heated, so this is asking me to make a conclusion from a sentence that's not there. The aerogel will be less prone to structural weaknesses that ultimately causes most other aerogels to break down. Both of these feel logical in here. I feel like I need to look for some sort of fact of the matter. So does it have more air pockets than others? I don't know where that detail is coming from in this like structural weaknesses. I guess I could see both of them, but I'm going to read the text. Aerogels are highly porous foams consisting mainly of tiny air pockets. Okay. That's where the air pocket detail gets addressed. These lightweight materials are often applied to spacecrafts to withstand extreme conditions, as they provide excellent insulation despite typically being brittle and eventually fracturing. Yeah, so this is the detail that would trick kids into A, or lead kids to A. This is the detail that engages with D. Now they have developed an aerogel with uniquely flexible properties, unlike the other ones. Oh, I was misreading this. I don't know how I did that, or I guess I know how I did that. I was reading it as when heated and fully recovers compressing after it had compressed. I was reading it as after it had compressed to just 5%. Sorry, that's how it should be read. After it had compressed to just 5%. For some reason, I read it the first time as after compressing, it returned to 5%, but then the fully should have stopped me from doing that. My bad. So it's based, this thing. I don't have evidence to support that it has more air pockets. That's the thing, where air pockets are a part of it. But nowhere in this text developed that the flexibility comes from this thing. We just have that it's remarkably flexible. Then it's from that it's remarkably flexible, it doesn't have the weaknesses, and this is what I would support here. So I can speak in this sentence to its remarkable flexibility, can't speak to it having more or less air pockets. D is going to be my pick, and that is the end of this section. Thanks for hanging out.